All right. Well, welcome to our annual meeting. 2022, I suppose what will be a lot of us look back at the last year, but also look at the year ahead. Let me pray for us as we begin. It's kind of just a common practice to begin every meeting with prayer. Let's do that together. God, again, we're grateful for this day and for our time of worship we just had, and we're grateful, obviously, for this community of faith that we are entrusted to and we are part of and in a partnership with. As we talk about the dealings of the church, may we use this time to reflect on how best Westminster can be of service to you, and how we can continue to be a wonderful, healthy, vital congregation moving forward. Amen. I assume we have a quorum, so we're good to be here. All right. So the first item up that we just do at the annual meeting is we want to thank our outgoing elders and deacons. So if you're on this list, elders, and you're here, can you stand up? We recognize Joe Brodston, Felicia Cass, outgoing. Are you outgoing? All right. Just I was going to say, what's going on here? So where was I? Joe Brodston, Felicia Cass, who's all here. Tasha Knight, Matt Leshy, Dean Teedy, Nikki Washgate. Are there any of them here? Nikki's here. Some of them are starting their break early. Thank you for your service. For 6 or 3 years of service. For Nikki, it was 12. I don't know. Forever. But way to say thank you. And how about our deacons? So Steve Eilers, Holly Ritter, Troy Spick, I know is here. Thank you again, Joyce, and thanks to all those who serve. And I look forward to seeing how God is going to be using you next and continue to use you in your lives. Wonderful. The next item on our list of things we have to do at the annual meeting is our nominating committee. So I'll Karen Seiler up to give us a nominating report, and then as sort of an order, kind of a thing we have to do is the congregation really elects people, votes on people directly that are on the nominating committee, because those people then select who's on the other committees. So it obviously is a very important committee. Some people say it's the most important committee.
Well, after that, they'll know. So the nominating committee has, again, prayerfully and mindfully put together a slate of leadership for the congregation, and we are inviting 2 new members to join us for their first term, Judy Clausen and Jenny Dodd. And apparently Karen Seiler said yes to a second term. And so, do I need to take nominations from the floor for this? Yes. Okay, so are there any nominations for the nominating committee from the floor in addition to these 3, or in place of these 3? Okay, hearing none. Moderator, do you take the vote?
I can. You can. Yeah.
Okay. Although, all those in favor of the slate, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you very much.
We have to print ballots every year, just in case we have to do it. Now Gary's like, what am I going to do? Okay, and then the next, I think, is Scott, who was really anxious to stand earlier. You can stand now. Come on up and give us a Pnc report.
Before I do this, because it's about 10 pages long, I want to recognize the Pnc committee, and I don't know if they're all here or not, but if not, I'll still call them out. Kendall Crawford, Stephen Jordan, Regina Rivers, Jennifer Owen-Kuhn, June Klein-Bacon, and Judy Clausen, and then myself. And I want to thank them for their dedication and hard work, because it has certainly been that. Before I move on, I also want to recognize a confirmation group, if they would stand up, because Susan and I, Susan Larson, who was the backbone of the committee, very good class, we felt it's important that they learn the polity of the Presbyterian Church, and what better way to do it than to have them here and watch us adults act like adults. So, thank you, and good job. Thank you, guys. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this a short recap as best I can. We've been meeting since last part of March, if I remember right. Dan gave us the papers and notebooks that we needed to proceed. And we began writing our mission statement in May. And we completed that in October. Our session approved unanimously to accept it at the end of September, and then our COM voted unanimously to accept it in October. So we immediately began our MIF, which is the Ministry Information Form. We gleaned the information that we gathered from all of you from our mission study, which was 30-some pages long, maybe 500 and some pages long. And with that information, we formed our ministry information form. Last week, our session unanimously approved that with a couple of typos on my part. And then now it is in the hands of our COM, Commission on Ministry, which is a branch of our presbytery, who has to give their stamp of approval before we can move forward. Once that is done, they will meet February 14th, on Valentine's Day of all days. Dedicated group they are. And once that stamp of approval is given, then that will go on to the, Presbyterians are wonderful with acronyms, they'll go on to the CLC, the Church Leadership Connection. And through them, they will match pastors that mirror what we are asking for in our ministry information form. Once that is done, we will begin receiving the PIFs. It may be changed by now, I don't know, but I think it's the pastor information form. And we will begin the task of finding our new head of staff. So that is where we are at this point. We will wait word from our COM mid-February, and we will continue to keep you informed of where we are. But I cannot stress our thanks and appreciation for your patience and support. And we would ask for continued prayers as we proceed with this process. So, and the people's names that I mentioned earlier, if you have a question, ask us. We're more than willing to answer them for you. So, thank you.
And look at this, how do I like to move? John Spees. I would add that if you don't have one of these sheets of paper, the back side of the agenda has the finances on it that John will go through, and then I think some of Jody will too. So if you need one, there's hopefully plenty of tables around. I can maybe walk around with a few as well.
Well, good morning. Oops, sorry about that. As Dan mentioned, we've put a kind of a summary of financials on the back of the handout. I also, on the screen, I've done a little recap. First, I'll hit 2021. If we look at where we ended the year compared to budget, we were way off. A lot of times you hear that, and that's a bad thing. In this case, we were off because of significant changes staffing-wise through 2021, which reduced the staffing expense. Because we didn't have that staffing expense, we did not need to tap what we budgeted for taking out our reserves or endowment support. So, as of the end of December, I'm pleased to announce that we ended the year with a surplus of just over $17,000. It was budgeted at the beginning of last year that we would use about $151,000 of endowment or reserve support. So a big swing to the positive. As we said, I'd like to thank every one of the members that donated resources, time, expertise to make that possible. the end of the year, what we ended up expending to keep our ministries alive was $544,071. A large amount. The budget was $665,681. So 2021 in the books wasn't as bad as what would be budgeted for. In fact, with the surplus that carries forward into this year, which also helps us. Through the Elder Seeking Wisdom Task Force, there were many changes made from a personnel standpoint last year. We went from full-time youth and music directors to a transitional plan where we have part-time music and youth coordination. Recently, as you've known, Pastor Ken is no longer with us as an interim pastor. Those things, as well as others, we're projecting will save us around $150,000 in annualized personnel costs. That helps with this year's budget. This year's budget totals $595,484. A little bit higher than previous year actual numbers. All the committee chairs, Elders Seeking Wisdom, and Session think that this is a reasonable budget. It's going to be tough in some areas as we look outside and as we've experienced and you've experienced at home. One area that is going to be challenging is our property budget. In talking with, let's see him right here, Don Kester. Yep, there he is. We had a discussion just a couple days ago that based off of energy costs right now, during the heating season, for this last month, it's taking about $160 a day to keep this building in this operating temperature range. That is $125 more than what we had 12 months ago. So you're feeling it in your pocketbook, we'll be feeling it here in the church pocketbook. But there'll probably be some positive surprises as we look at the budget going forward. Just like last year, where Pastor Ken didn't start until the end of April. We had budgeted a full year, that helped us. This year we're budgeting for an associate pastor for a full year. We're at the end of January right now, not having found that person, so that on the expense side will help us. For this budget of $595,484, we will be budgeting, or we have budgeted, about $57,000 of reserves and endowment support. So just by our pledges or what we feel we're going to bring in, we need to plug the budget by about $57,000. Significantly lower than the $151,000 that we budgeted and didn't use last year. Reason that we can do that is our overall budget reserves. So the $17,000 from last year, accumulated reserves from previous years, total about $153,000 as we stand right now. So we do have that rainy day fund. We hope we don't have to use it, but the way the budget was approved by session, it includes that $57,000 of reserve for endowment support. One of the other things that session did at last week's meeting, we've heard about Elders Seeking Wisdom from last year. Session has approved reestablishing Elders Seeking Wisdom 2.0. And several of the elders from last year will be on that task force, as there are additional decisions to be made, and we will be seeking your input as members of the church as we go forward there. That's my brief look at financials. Or any questions? If you do, and you don't feel comfortable bringing them up, please seek me out, and I'll try to address it. That is all.
John continues to serve as our chair of finance and on session, so as he iterated, obviously, if there's any questions along the way about budget, please come and ask him. And I know Becky also would love to have a conversation with anybody about that too. So Jody Fabrizio, who actually just went, she's not off session, but she went off personnel, but still was involved with a lot of the stuff last year. We'll give the personnel report. There's some changes in personnel, and then one of the other things that we do at the annual meeting is approve the pastoral terms of call. So I'll step out in the coffee house just so you guys feel free to ask any questions that you want to while this portion happens. And I'll see you on the other side.
Let's hope. I think in the annual report, both Pastor Ken, Pastor Dan, and all the committee members pretty much touched on and highlighted some of the changes that happened personnel-wise. Elder Seeking Wisdom did bring the recommendation that was approved by session that moving forward will be moving to a solo pastor church. And in addition to that, last year, as you heard, with some resignations that we received for our youth and our music positions, we did transitionally fill those with part-time roles. There are a little clarification to John. We still have an associate pastor, and yes, when the Pnc process is complete and we are brought a candidate for our new pastor, that the associate role will go away. But for right now, Dan is still our associate pastor, and we will be voting on his terms of call. We do have one still open position. Elder Seeking Wisdom recommended and session approved that we seek a part-time visitation pastor. And so that job description has been completed, and we are actively seeking to fill that role to ensure that the pastoral care, an important and vital part of our church, does not fall solely on either Pastor Dan or our deacons, but that we will seek to fill that with a part-time pastor or lay elder. What are they called? Commissioned elder? I don't know what they're called. But we're seeking to fill that. Do we have any questions before I get to the terms of call?
What is the plan for pastoral coverage during Dan's sabbatical?
I don't believe they're seeking. We will have pulpit supply. We will fill with pulpit supply for actual preaching. We are hoping that that our part-time visitation pastor position is filled in terms of types of emergency type situations. We also have wonderful relationships with our other Presbyterian churches to help kind of fill those needs. In terms of like programming, I know at our last meeting, Margo, you brought it up, or someone brought up about VBS. We have we're seeking a special task force for VBS since Dan will not be here during our VBS time. So if anyone would like to serve on that, would be welcome, and you can seek the members of Christian Ed to volunteer for that. Anything else? The terms of call for our associate pastor for 2022, you can find on the back of the annual meeting agenda down at the bottom. The salary portion is $50,000. The housing portion, $28,000. The pastor pension, medical, dental benefits, $28,860. Continuing education expense account, $3,000. Pastor expense, professional expenses, $5,000. And SECA, which is we pay a 50% portion of the tax, $5,929, for a total package of $120,789,000. Are there any questions about this before we have a vote?
I just have a comment. We had no increase for 3 years in the associate pastor. This is long overdue, was gonna be my point, that there's some increases in that.
It has been for all our staff. I feel like we're at a two-year of a wage freeze. This would have been into 3 years. The personnel budget does budget for a small increase for all our staff. Anything else? Hearing nothing, all in favor of approving Pastor Voigt's terms of call for 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, you guys are really loud, so I had to be far away. Actually, we were putting our order in, for lunch. All right, now, it's kind of funny how I knew this, but I needed to be reminded of this again this year. But in most congregational meetings, when we call them like special meetings, we can only talk about the things that we said we're going to talk about at those meetings. But the annual meeting is the one exception. It's a meeting we have every year and it's scheduled. So we do allow for other business. There are other items of business that people would like us to bring up and discuss as a congregation.
Dan?
Yes.
I don't think we did the capital campaign update.
Oh, John, do you want to say anything about it? It might have been on the slide, but...
There was a slide, but we didn't do it.
I don't, with my wife not here, I didn't follow instructions. So, as most of you are aware, we started our most current capital campaign about 6 years ago. We asked for support for building the coffee house, doing extensive changes to the sanctuary, and other projects. That totaled about $1,531,500 in total. We did offer a 5-year pledging program, which helped significantly. I'm happy to say as of the end of the year, there's only one loan outstanding back to the endowment. That outstanding balance is $55,787. In looking and talking with those that are still fulfilling their pledges, we feel very comfortable that within the next 12 to 18 months that will be paid off in total. So I think we thank all of ourselves for making and maintaining such a beautiful church building, and that's the update on the capital campaign.
Awesome. Any other business that people would like to discuss, or if there are questions about that, I guess you can bring that up too. Yeah, Margo.
What other options are we looking at for uses of the building?
Yeah, if I'll just say something, but others might want to chime in, the session members. But that is one of the reasons why the ESW 2.0 has joined together, I think. It's just a smaller group of session that can meet more regularly and dive into some of these issues. But yeah, one of the things that we may have to think about are other ways we can use this building. This is a really, really big building. We do utilize it a lot. I think we do better than a lot of congregations. Talking about privilege and better than, sorry. That's not what I don't mean that. We're better. But Dwight was actually just asking me before the service about how often this room gets used. And I'm like, well, we do have like a Zumba group on Tuesdays, and we've got our ministry on Wednesdays, and there's an Al-Anon group on Fridays. And so it gets used. We do have lots of groups that come in. We've got 3 Boy Scout troops that use the building too, and sometimes find their way in here. But most of those aren't exactly money making. So one of the things we may have to think about are other ways in which we can utilize our building or rent out portions of it or something like that. I mean, I think those are real conversations we have to have. So, is that helpful? Does somebody else want to chime in from session on that one? And if you didn't hear the question, it was are there other ways we can use the building? Are we exploring other ways to use the building? Yeah.
Are there either county or city of monies to help offset the food pantry?
Yes, we can get some grants. We got some grant. Oh, sorry. So the question was, are there resources in our county or state to help us pay for the food pantry?
Or the fact that we're a food pantry in the church, that maybe they would donate money, because the church is a place for that. Not
Yeah.
just the food, but the real estate use.
The real estate use. Yeah. So I would just leave that open. You know, in general, we're a congregation. If you guys hear about things, let us know. There are some grants that we have applied for that help us pay for that. Generally speaking, the food pantry hasn't cost us much other than obviously personal time and energy, and then obviously probably utility bills a bit. But we've been able to pay for most of that up to this point from outside sources, actually. Bonnie?
Yeah, I was wondering about the custodial staff. Do we have a part-time custodian at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is like rapid fire questions. This is fun. So we decided to, after Tyler Della, our last full-time custodian, left, and we were still kind of in the midst of the pandemic, we'll call shutdown, but we were doing less in the building. The session decided to hire an outside cleaning service to come in and clean, and also hire a part-time custodial staff to come in and do setups. And so we have a group called Mary Maids. They come in every Thursday to clean our building. It's like a flurry of activity, and they do it very well, we think. And then we are also hiring Dale, who's also the custodian next door. And his last name is Kavanaugh? Stabenow, that's right, Stabenow. It was escaped. But Dale comes over for 10 to 12 hours a week to help us with our setup. So like setting up all of these tables and chairs, and then tearing them down, and other things around the building as they happen throughout the week. Those 2 items together, they cost us honestly about the same as much as our full-time custodian did. We're not saving a lot in that, but we are getting something with Mary Maids that's a quality, but also isn't susceptible to if somebody gets sick. So that's service, so that's a nice thing. And also, if I would just add, sometimes it's been hard to find somebody who's really good at the maintenance side and then also the cleaning side. So it may be something to look forward, to think about moving forward. If we did have a full-time person, maybe that would have its own benefits, but finding somebody to do both is can be tricky. Did I answer the question? Some about custodian. Any other business or just questions? One of the things I love about the annual meeting is that it does allow us again to kind of name the people who are the key players in the church. Not that they're more important than anybody else in the room, right? But they are the people that we have elected to positions of authority, because we need somebody to do that. And so I hope that you notice them, and that you, if you have things that you'd like to bring up or questions you have, you can certainly ask me, but you know, John is really the master on the finances. Jody's off personnel, so stop bothering her. But Eric in the back of the room there, he decided to be or agreed to be our personnel chair. So you can bother Eric or other people in the personnel committee about personnel issues. Scott, you know, and the other Pnc group to give them input on the search process. You know, notice who those people are, and you know, healthy conversations, healthy congregations, healthy groups, right? Have healthy, open, and honest conversations. So please feel free to always get your thoughts and questions out there. Hope you hear that. Anything else, Margo? Yeah.
Another question.
Yeah.
I think many were surprised when we started, you know, getting the information on our decreasing membership.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering, during these past, you know, 2 to 3 years, when this seemed to have the most significant impact,
Okay.
what were we doing to reach out to some of those people, or to find out what was going on when people left? How did we know that they left or they just disappeared? What were we doing?
Yeah. I'm happy to answer, but I just want to leave. So Margo has been, her question was, when we've had decreases in membership, and she named that in the last 2 or 3 years as an example, when we're seeing these decreases in membership, what has been done to reach out to these folks and talk to them or find out what's going on? Is that a good summary? Okay. Typically, the staff, a lot of times that goes to the pastoral staff. We do reach out to folks as best as we can. We don't often get replies back. Sometimes I guess, you know, people don't want to have those conversations with us, which is too bad. We don't have exactly like a formal list of questions, but we do try to talk to them and reach out and see what's going on in their lives or why they have chosen to move away or step away from the church. And then probably though, one of the hardest pieces is we stopped taking the attendance on Sunday mornings, as you're probably aware. But even before we stopped taking the attendance, people really stopped filling out the attendance sheets. And so it can be hard to know who's not here all the time. We try to notice and pay attention and call those folks. There was somebody here this morning that I hadn't seen in months that, you know, actually been calling every once in a while just to see how they were. And it was just great to see them, wonderful. But yeah, those things I think as a congregation, I think it's helpful to own. You know, who do I notice who hasn't here, and can I touch base and check in on them? And if there's people that maybe you think the pastoral staff or others the deacons, for instance, need to check in on, please give us those names and thoughts. Let's care for each other. Let's do that together as a group.
Is there still a membership committee?
There used to be a membership and outreach committee, but no, they were disbanded 3 or 4 years ago. A lot of those activities got moved over to the deacons. But from my time here, I never saw them as like, mostly as more of like trying to facilitate community experiences rather than checking on the membership and people. But maybe that was one of their original tasks, I don't know. Do the other elders or deacons want to respond to that question? Okay. I don't know if it's satisfactory, but did I attempt to answer?
But I mean, it would be nice to know why people have either left or did they leave because they were ignored.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we try to find that out, and we do. But it's hard to say, and I don't know, maybe we could do a better job of having like a spreadsheet and figure out what the percentages are. But there are certainly some people who do go to other churches. I have sort of found that more people in this day and age, when they have fallen away from Westminster, they've just fallen away from church altogether, to be honest with you. That's just the culture of the time that we're living in. And some people, and then obviously there are occasions where people get upset about something, but I would say those are rare. Any other I guess unless you have follow-ups, I don't mean to, I know this is a serious issue, so I don't want to brush it off or push over.
And I just think it's something that we need to pay more attention to.
Okay.
And if that means having a membership committee again, or people, you know, or that it's attached to,
Okay.
you know, a certain group or whatever, but I think when people feel they're ignored,
Yeah.
that nobody missed them, that they were gone, I think that's important to deal with.
I think that's wonderful. Gary, can you make a note of that and put it on our February session agenda? Deacons, where are you?
Oh my.
All right, Deacons, put it on your agenda as well, so maybe talk about that.
Are those that are watching online being encouraged to come back to the church?
I think that's a little bit of a tenuous subject. I mean, I think yeah, that's hard.
Well, if they
I like to hope that we're encouraging people to come, but I know that one of the reasons we provide it is for people who can't, but then also physically can't, but then also people who still continue to feel unsafe, right? Although numbers are starting to go down, they actually say they're worse now than maybe they've ever been in our county. So I want to be careful about trying to shame anybody into coming back to the church. Yeah.
So I think if you participate on the church online, you're still participating in the church. I don't see that as members lost. As people age or they have illnesses and other things, if they're engaged online, I would still consider that active membership personally.
Yeah.
I do want to say as an elder that I am a deacon, so Deacon and I both have reached out to individuals that we've not seen recently. And one sent a letter of transferring. The others had personal reasons and that they have not left the church, they're not attending the church.
Yeah.
But I think another important factor is, and I hate to use this, but it's the COVID. And we're not the only church. It is nationwide, and I read a number of articles, and I don't care if you're Muslim, Catholic, Protestant, every single church has experienced this during this era, the last 2 or 3 years. Sad, but I think that the one article that we read is such members, and you had shared, Dan, that because of COVID, we have been rushed 10 years into the future, and everything is going electronic now. And it's not something that I like, but it's reality.
I'd also like to say, if someone is being told that someone feels like they're being ignored, then you need to talk to section, you need to talk to the pastoral staff so that we can address that, because I'm sure that is not anyone's intention. But if we don't know about it, and it's being missed for whatever reason, that we need to know about it so that we can rectify that situation.
I'll add to that too. Obviously, we're moving into, as a person that was on Elder Seeking Wisdom last year, we didn't just pull decisions out of the hat. I think we formed in maybe April. I think we probably met 16 or 20 times in 8 months. We were meeting twice a month, hour and a half, 2 hours at a clip. We didn't come to these decisions lightly, but we also know that the changes that are being made, everything's going to have a ripple effect. And part of the ripple effects of the decisions that were made to try and balance our giving with our ministry is the fact that our committees might have to pick up doing more. And without the oversight of a pastor, we can't expect our pastor to lead us and yet attend 6 different committee meetings, 7, I don't know how many committees we have, 7 committees every month. So some of these things that we're feeling might be lacking, we also have to kind of look in the mirror and what can I do to help? Because we can't expect just one person to handle everything for us.
think in a lot of ways it takes all of us to care for each other. There's no way that one person, right, can care for the membership of 50. But I think it's important to think about, do we have the proper sort of steps or things in place so that we can make sure we're tracking everybody? Which makes us sound like Big Brother. Yeah, Bonnie.
I'm just speaking for the part of the Deacons as we have a card ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to invite anyone who would like to participate in communicating with people they haven't seen in a long time, or whoever they would like to, they can find out more information on that, or to participate actively in the card ministry that we do as well. That, just to get a card in the mail is something that is unusual these days, unless it's a bill or something like that. So, that ministry is going on as well, and it's something anybody can do. They just need to check with the deacons or someone in the office, one of us.
Yeah. So Bonnie was trying to just a reminder, one of the ministries going on is a card making ministry, and once a month they have a special day on a Thursday where they're doing that. But there are cards available in the library, and obviously your joys and concerns come out to you every week. So make sure you're getting those. I know my filters are high on my email, so they go into junk mail a lot. But yeah, you can write cards to people that way to help stay in touch. Any other items for discussion or business? A few people have left. Somebody wants to go home.
I just want to say, I think it's a great place to worship, and I'm glad that it exists for all of you.
Yeah, sounds like a great and positive note to end on. Yeah. Okay. Well, without, our meeting is adjourned, and I'll pray us out. Holy God, we're again grateful, as Heidi just reminded us. It's a great place to worship. It's a great people to be with. May we continue to do wonderful ministry here with over $500,000 that people give, but even more than that, their time and their energies and their talents. Indeed, this is a rich place in which we can be, and we can worship, and we can live together as your people. Would we feel your spirit moving in us this year as it did every year before this? And may we continue to do good and wonderful ministry that benefits us, that benefits this community, that benefits this city of Waterloo, and is a blessing as far as we can reach across the world. Amen.